The massive viewing windows of the Galactic Council Station framed Verdun Prime like a jewel against the darkness of space. Commander Park Ji-woo stood before the glass, his hands clasped behind his back, studying the green and blue world that had brought him across half the galaxy. Somewhere down there, beneath those swirling clouds, lay deposits of zenithium so pure that a single mining operation could fuel human expansion for generations. The planet should have been theirs. Humans had found it first, mapped it, named it. But finding something and keeping it were very different things in a galaxy full of older, stronger species. Behind Park, the council chamber buzzed with activity. Translators hummed softly as dozens of species conducted their business. The air smelled strange, a mixture of atmospheres carefully balanced to accommodate everyone present. Park had been on the station for 3 weeks now, sitting through endless diplomatic sessions that went nowhere. The Zorvath Empire had occupied Verdun Prime for 3 standard cycles, and they showed no interest in leaving. Commander Park, the session is beginning, called Dr. Chen Minho, his chief advisor. Chen was a thin man with worried eyes, who had opposed this entire mission from the start. He believed humans should avoid conflict with the Zorvath, find another world, accept their place as newcomers to galactic society. Park understood the fear. The Zorvath were legendary warriors. Their empire stretched across 12 systems. They had never lost a territorial dispute. Park turned from the window and walked to the human delegation table. It was positioned near the back of the chamber, a subtle reminder of humanity's junior status. The Zorvath occupied the prime position directly across from the council mediators. Their delegation filled an entire section, with armored warriors standing at attention. The chamber grew quiet as High Mediator Vextha glided to the central platform. She was Korthan, a species known for patience and neutrality. Her silvery skin reflected the chamber lights as she spoke. We gather to continue arbitration regarding Verdun Prime. The Zorvath Empire claims right of occupation. The Human Coalition claims right of discovery. Both parties have presented evidence. The Council requires more time to deliberate. More time. Always more time. Park felt frustration building in his chest. Every day of delay meant more Zorvath infrastructure on Verdun Prime, making them harder to dislodge. A thunderous voice cut through the chamber. Enough of this tedious process. Prince Kral Vex rose from the Zorvath section like a mountain coming to life. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled hide marked with scars of countless battles. Ornate armor covered his massive frame, and his eyes burned with barely contained aggression. The prince was younger than most Zorvath commanders, but his record of victories spoke for itself. He had crushed 3 rebellions before his 20th cycle. High Mediator, the Zorvath Empire grows weary of delays, Kralvex announced. We have occupied the world. We have developed it. We have claimed it by strength. This is the way of the galaxy. Vextha maintained her composure. Prince Kralvex, the Council recognizes both occupation and discovery as valid claims. We must weigh all factors. Then let us settle this as our ancestors did. The prince's voice echoed through the chamber. I invoke trial by strategic contest. The old law, recognized by this council, allows disputes to be resolved through demonstration of strategic superiority. The winner claims the world without further debate. The chamber erupted. Dozens of species began talking at once. Park felt Chen's hand grip his arm. Commander, this is a trap. The Zorvath train for combat from birth. Any military simulation, any tactical warfare scenario, they will dominate. Park knew Chen was right. If this became a test of military might, even simulated, humanity had no chance. The Zorvath had been fighting wars when humans were still debating whether to leave Earth. High Mediator Vextha raised her hands for silence. Trial by strategic contest is indeed recognized under ancient council law. However, both parties must agree to terms. Commander Park, Does humanity accept this challenge? Every eye in the chamber turned to Park. He could feel the weight of expectation, fear, and doubt. Earth was watching through Ansible transmission. Millions of potential settlers waited for his answer. Chen was shaking his head slightly, signaling rejection. But Park had not come all this way to back down. He stepped forward. What are the terms? Kralvex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Simple, human. We each choose a strategic contest. The council randomly selects which one we use. We compete. The winner takes Verdun Prime, and the loser abandons all claims. Forever. The chamber fell completely silent. Chen whispered urgently, Commander, please. We cannot win this. Park ignored him. His mind raced through possibilities. If they chose military simulation, they would lose. If they chose anything related to direct combat or warfare, the Zorvath advantage would be overwhelming. He needed something different. Something the Zorvath would not expect. Something human. An idea began to form. It was risky. Perhaps insane. But it might be their only chance. I accept the challenge, Park said clearly. And I choose an ancient human strategic contest called chess. The chamber exploded with noise. Species Park had never heard of began arguing about what chess might be. The Zorvath delegation looked confused. Then, amused. Kralvex threw back his head and laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Chess? What is this chess? A game for children? Park kept his expression neutral. It is a game of strategy, tactics, and foresight. 2 players, 32 pieces each. The objective is to trap the opponent's king. It has been played by human military commanders and strategic thinkers for over 1,500 years. Kralvex's amusement faded slightly. And you believe this simple board game represents true strategic thinking? I believe it will prove which of us can think more clearly and plan more carefully, Park replied. Unless the prince fears a simple board game? The challenge in Park's tone was subtle but clear. Kralvex's eyes narrowed. The Zorvath fear nothing. I accept your choice. When the council selects between our options, we shall see which proves superior. High Mediator Vextha consulted her data screen. The selection will be made in 1 standard hour. Both parties will have 7 days to prepare. The contest will be held in this chamber, open to all observers. Are these terms acceptable? Both Park and Kralvex agreed. As the session ended, Chen pulled Park aside. Commander, what have you done? You have bet our entire future on a board game, even if the council selects chess. What makes you think you can defeat a Zorvath prince? They are brilliant tacticians. Park finally allowed himself a small smile. Because, Dr. Chen, the Zorvath know how to fight wars, but I know how to play chess. There is a difference. 1 hour later, the council made its random selection. The word flashed across every screen in the chamber. Chess. Prince Kralvex stood and bowed mockingly toward Park. 7 days, human. I will learn your game, and then I will crush you as I would crush any opponent. Park returned the bow with respect. 7 days, Prince. May the best strategist win. As the human delegation left the chamber, Park looked back at Verdun Prime through the windows. The planet seemed to glow with possibility. Everything now depended on 64 squares, 32 pieces, and his ability to outthink a warrior prince who had never known defeat. The game that would decide a world was about to begin. The human delegation quarters were cramped compared to the spacious Zorvath sections. But Park preferred it that way. The small conference room felt familiar, almost like the strategy rooms back on the colony ships. He sat alone at a table. A physical chess set spread before him. The pieces were carved from wood his grandfather had brought from Earth. The board was worn smooth from decades of use. Dr. Chen entered carrying a data pad, his expression troubled. Commander, I have been monitoring Zorvath communications. Prince Kralvex has assembled a team of their finest tactical analysts. They are studying every recorded chess game in the Galactic database. They have already beaten several advanced AI programs. Park moved his knight to f3, starting an opening sequence he had practiced 10,000 times. Of course they have. The Zorvath are fast learners. The prince did not conquer 3 rebellions by being stupid. Then how can you hope to win? Chen set down his datapad. Commander, I supported your decision in the chamber, because we had no choice. But now, privately, I need to know. Do you have a real plan? Park looked up at his advisor. Chen deserved honesty. My grandfather taught me chess when I was 6 years old, back on New Sol Colony. Before we had proper schools or networks, he said chess was more than a game. It was a way of thinking about life, about conflict, about the difference between what seems strong and what actually is strong. He moved a pawn forward. By the time I was 15, I was colony champion. By 20, I had competed in the Outer Rim tournaments. I have played chess almost every day for 32 years. It is not just something I know, Dr. Chen. It is how my mind works. Chen sat down slowly. But the Zorvath learn quickly. They do. But learning the rules and understanding the game are different things. Chess was created by humans, shaped by human psychology, human culture, human ways of thinking about conflict. The Zorvath approach warfare with overwhelming force. They value direct assault, aggressive tactics, and visible strength. These instincts will work against them in chess. You are betting everything on that assumption. Park nodded. I am betting everything on knowing myself and understanding my opponent. That is what chess teaches. Across the station, in the Zorvath training facility, Prince Kralvex stared at a holographic chessboard with intense concentration. Around him, 5 tactical analysts pointed out patterns, variations, and strategies they had discovered. The prince absorbed information at a remarkable pace, his warrior mind adapting to this new kind of battlefield. The queen is the most powerful piece, explained his chief analyst, a scarred veteran named Draknor. She moves in any direction, any distance. Logic suggests protecting her while using her to attack. Kralvex nodded. And the king must be protected at all costs? Correct, Prince. If the king is trapped, the game ends immediately. Then the strategy is clear. Advance with force. Use the powerful pieces to overwhelm the opponent. Sacrifice weaker pieces to achieve position. This is basic, tactical thinking. What none of the Zorvath noticed was the young scholar standing quietly in the corner. Tevrin was the prince's youngest cousin, sent on this mission to learn diplomacy rather than warfare. While the others focused on tactics and analysis, Tevrin felt something else about this game. Something the computers and analysts were missing. Later that evening, Tevrin did something unusual for a Zorvath. He went to the human quarters and requested to speak with Commander Park. Park was surprised when the young Zorvath appeared at his door. Tevrin was smaller than most of his species, barely 2 meters tall, with scales that still held the lighter color of youth. His armor was simple, marked with scholarly rather than military honors. Commander Park, I request a moment of your time, Tevrin said formally. Park gestured for him to enter. Of course. Please, sit. Tevrin looked at the chess set on the table. I wish to understand this game better. Not to help my cousin win, but because I am curious. Why did you choose chess? Chess. Park appreciated the honesty. He set up the pieces. Because chess is not about strength. It is about position, patience, and seeing possibilities that others miss. Would you like to learn the basics? For the next 2 hours, Park taught Tevrin how the pieces moved, the fundamental principles of controlling the center, developing pieces, and protecting the king. The young Zorvath learned quickly, but kept asking questions that surprised Park. Why would you sacrifice a piece intentionally? Tevrin asked. Because sometimes losing something small lets you gain something larger. A pawn sacrifice might open a line for your bishop. Losing a knight might trap your opponent's queen. Tevrin's eyes widened. This is not how Zorvath think about battle. We believe in preserving strength, never willingly accepting loss. That is why chess might be difficult for your cousin, Park said gently. The game requires accepting temporary losses for future gains. You are teaching me this, knowing I will return to the Zorvath section, Park smiled. You asked honestly. I answer honestly. Besides, understanding principles and applying them are different things. Your cousin will learn the rules quickly. But learning to think like a chess player takes much longer. Tevrin stood to leave, then paused. Commander Park, may I ask a personal question? Are you afraid? Park considered the question. Yes. I am afraid of failing my people. Afraid of losing the opportunity Verdun Prime represents. But I am not afraid of the game itself. Chess is an old friend. After Tevrin left, Park returned to his chess set. He played through famous games from history. The Immortal Game, where Adolf Anderssen sacrificed both rooks and his queen to achieve checkmate. The Opera Game, where Paul Morphy demonstrated the power of piece development and tactical vision. These games were more than just moves on a board. They were lessons in creative thinking, in seeing beyond the obvious. Dr. Chen found him there at midnight. Commander, you should rest. The match is in 6 days. I am resting, Park said, moving pieces through a complex middle game position. This is how I prepare my mind. The next 5 days passed in a blur of preparation. Park maintained his routine, playing through classic games, analyzing positions, keeping his mind sharp, but not overthinking. He knew that chess at the highest level was partly calculation but mostly intuition built through years of experience. Meanwhile, Prince Kralvex trained intensively. He played hundreds of games against AI opponents, defeated them all, and grew confident. His analysts fed him opening theory, tactical patterns, and endgame techniques. The prince memorized everything, his warrior discipline serving him well. On the 6th day, Park received a message from Earth. It was a video from his grandfather, now 93 years old, and still living on New Sol Colony. The old man's face appeared on the screen, wrinkled but sharp-eyed. Jiwoo, I heard about your challenge. The whole colony is watching. I want you to remember what I taught you. Chess is not about the pieces. It is about understanding what your opponent values, what they fear, what they cannot see. You chose this game for a reason. Trust that reason. Park felt emotion tighten his throat. Thank you, grandfather. I will make you proud. We find. Formated. Doing formated. And we did. That night, Park slept deeply for the first time since arriving at the station. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. Verdun Prime. Humanity's expansion. Their reputation among the galactic species. All of it rested on 64 squares, and the ability to outthink a warrior prince. But as he drifted to sleep, Park felt calm. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, even though he had not known it. Every game, every puzzle, every hour studying chess had been leading to this. He was ready. The council chamber had been transformed overnight. The usual conference tables were gone, replaced by circular seating that rose in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. At the center of the chamber, suspended in the air by gravitic generators, floated a massive chessboard. Each square measured 1 meter across, and the pieces stood as tall as a human child. They gleamed with holographic light, beautifully crafted to resemble traditional Earth chess pieces, but enlarged to spectacular proportions. Park entered the chamber to find it already filled with observers. Representatives from 40 different species had come to witness the match. He spotted the delicate whisper folk in their environmental suits, the crystalline shard singers reflecting light in rainbow patterns, and the massive gorehounds whose species valued strength above all else. Everyone had an opinion about what would happen. Most were betting on the Zorvath. Dr. Chen walked beside Park, carrying nothing but a small case with water and nutrient supplements. "The odds are 20 to 1 against us," he whispered. "Some species are already planning how to approach the Zorvath for trade agreements after they win." Park adjusted his uniform and smiled. "Then we will surprise them." On the opposite side of the chamber, Prince Kralvex entered with his entourage. The Zorvath prince wore ceremonial armor, polished to mirror brightness. His scales had been painted with victory marks in preparation for the contest. He moved through the crowd like a battleship, radiating confidence and power. When he saw Park, he raised one clawed hand in salute. Park returned the gesture with respect. High Mediator Vextha glided to the central platform beside the floating chessboard. Her silver skin seemed to glow with reflected light from the holographic pieces. "We gather to witness trial by strategic contest. Commander Park Ji-woo, of humanity, against Prince Kralvex, of the Zorvath Empire. The contest is chess. The stakes are Verdun Prime. The rules are absolute. Do both parties agree to be bound by the outcome?" "Agreed," Park said clearly. "The Zorvath accept," Kralvex declared. "Then take your positions. By random selection, Prince Kralvex will play white and move first." Park felt a small flutter of concern. Playing black meant responding to the Zorvath's initiative. But he pushed the worry aside. He had played both colors thousands of times. He walked to his designated position and sat in the chair provided. Across the giant board, Kralvex settled into his own seat, which had been specially constructed to support his massive frame. The chamber fell silent. Every eye focused on the board. Secondary holographic displays appeared throughout the seating areas, showing the position from multiple angles and displaying analysis for those who understood chess. Kralvex reached forward and touched one of his pieces. The holographic pawn glided forward 2 squares. E4. The king's pawn opening, the most common starting move in chess. Aggressive and direct. Park was not surprised. Park responded by mirroring the move, E5. His own king's pawn advanced to meet the challenge. The symmetry was deliberate, inviting Kralvex to reveal his strategy. The prince moved quickly. Knight to F3, developing a piece and attacking Park's pawn. The Zorvath had clearly memorized opening theory. Park responded with knight to C6, defending the pawn and developing his own piece. The early moves flowed quickly. Kralvex played the Italian game, a classical opening that Park had expected. The prince was following textbook strategy, developing pieces logically and controlling the center. But Park noticed something. Every move Kralvex made was aggressive, pushing forward, claiming space. The Zorvath instinct for attack was showing already. Park played more quietly, developing his pieces carefully and maintaining flexibility. He did not rush. He did not try to seize space aggressively. Instead, he created a compact, solid position that would be difficult to crack. By move 10, the position had become complex. Both players had developed most of their pieces. The center was locked with pawns. The real battle was about to begin. Park could feel Kralvex studying the position, calculating variations. The prince was strong, no doubt about that. His tactical vision was excellent. Then Kralvex launched his attack. He pushed pawns on the king's side, the side where Park's king sat. The intent was clear. Break through. Expose the king. Deliver checkmate. It was pure Zorvath thinking. Identify the target. Attack with force. Overwhelm the defenses. Park watched the assault develop and felt calm. This was the moment he had anticipated. He responded by sacrificing a knight, allowing Kralvex to capture it. The Zorvath section of the audience roared approval. Secondary displays showed analysis suggesting Park had blundered, giving away a valuable piece for nothing. But Park knew better. The knight sacrifice cleared a key square and opened a diagonal for his bishop. More importantly, it drew Kralvex's pieces forward, away from the center, overextending the attack. Kralvex took the knight with his bishop, gaining material advantage. He was now ahead by a whole piece. The betting odds in the chamber shifted even more heavily toward the Zorvath. Park continued developing his position. He moved his rook to e8, adding pressure to the center. He repositioned his remaining knight. He advanced a pawn on the queen side, the opposite side of the board from where Kralvex was attacking. The moves seemed slow, defensive, almost passive. What is the human doing? Someone whispered in the audience. He has already lost, another voice responded. The Zorvath is winning by force. But young Tevrin, sitting in the Zorvath section, leaned forward with growing realization. He had learned enough from Park to recognize what was happening. No, he whispered to himself. The human is not defending. He is setting a trap. Kralvex pressed his attack. He advanced more pawns. He brought his queen into the assault. The position looked overwhelming for Park. The human's king appeared surrounded. About to fall. The prince calculated a forced checkmate in 7 moves. Victory was certain. Then Park made his move. His bishop, the one that had been waiting on that diagonal opened by the knight sacrifice, captured a pawn. It looked like a desperate counterattack, a meaningless gesture. Kralvex barely glanced at it before moving his queen forward, delivering what he believed would be a decisive blow. Park's hand moved to his rook. He slid it across the board with quiet certainty. Kralvex's expression shifted. The Zorvath prince stared at the board, suddenly seeing what he had missed. Park's rook gave check, forcing the Zorvath king to move. But every square the king could move to was also attacked. And behind that rook, Park's other pieces were perfectly positioned. The attack Kralvex had been so confident about suddenly looked like a liability. His pieces were scattered on the king's side, too far from the center to defend. The material advantage meant nothing if his king was trapped. Kralvex moved his king to the only safe square. Park brought his queen into play. Check again. The Zorvath prince moved a piece to block. Park captured it with his bishop. The pieces that had seemed scattered and defensive revealed themselves as a coordinated attacking force. The chamber had gone completely silent. The secondary displays showed analysts frantically recalculating. The Zorvath section, which had been celebrating moments before, watched in stunned disbelief. Park pressed forward methodically. Check, block, capture. Check. Each move tightened the net around Kralvex's king. The prince fought back brilliantly, finding defensive resources that would have saved a weaker player. But Park had seen this pattern 20 moves earlier. Every piece was exactly where it needed to be. Finally, Kralvex held up one massive hand. Pause, he requested. High Mediator Vextha consulted the rules. Both players may request one 5-minute pause during the match. Permission granted. Well, Kralvex stood and walked to the edge of the platform, staring at the board from a distance. Park saw the exact moment when the prince understood. The Zorvath's eyes widened as he calculated forward, seeing the inevitable conclusion. Park's position was not just winning. It was completely crushing. The trap had been set 30 moves ago. From the moment Park sacrificed that night, Kralvex returned to his seat. He looked at Park with an expression the human had not seen before. Respect, mixed with something else. Wonder, perhaps. How many moves ago did you plan this? The prince asked. Park met his eyes. From the opening. When you pushed your pieces forward, I knew how to turn your strength into weakness. Kralvex nodded slowly and looked back at the board. The 5-minute pause ended, and the match resumed. Kralvex sat forward in his chair, his earlier confidence replaced by intense concentration. The prince was not one to surrender easily. His entire life had been spent overcoming challenges, turning desperate situations into victories. This would be no different, he told himself. There must be a way to fight back. He moved his queen to a defensive position, blocking Park's most immediate threat. It was a good move, the best available. Park responded by bringing his remaining rook into the attack. The coordination between Park's pieces was beautiful to observe. They worked together like dancers in perfect synchronization, each supporting the others. Hours passed. The audience remained transfixed. What had started as an expected Zorvath victory had transformed into something else entirely. Species who understood strategy began to appreciate what they were witnessing. Park was not just winning. He was demonstrating a completely different way of thinking about conflict. Kralvex defended with skill that earned murmurs of appreciation even from Park's supporters. The prince found resources in the position that computers had missed. He created counter-threats, forced Park to pause and recalculate, and extended the game far longer than seemed possible. But with each exchange of pieces, Park's advantage grew clearer. In the Zorvath section, Tevrin watched with fascination. He had spent time learning from Park, and could now see the difference in approach. Kralvex played like a warrior, fighting for every piece of space, every tactical opportunity. But Park played like water flowing downhill, finding the natural path, avoiding obstacles rather than confronting them directly, inevitable and patient. "This is not how we fight," Tevrin whispered to the Zorvath noble beside him. The older warrior grunted. "The human fights without honor. He sacrifices pieces, retreats, avoids direct confrontation." But Tevrin shook his head. "No. He fights with a different kind of honor. He respects the game itself more than his own pride. He sacrifices when sacrifice serves a purpose. He retreats when retreat creates opportunity. This is wisdom we do not possess." The noble looked at Tevrin with surprise. Such words, from a Zorvath, especially about a human, were nearly unthinkable. On the board, the position had simplified to a rook and pawn endgame. Material was roughly equal, but Park's pieces were perfectly coordinated, while Kralvex's king was trapped on the side of the board. Park advanced a pawn, supported by his rook. Kralvex tried to blockade it, but Park maneuvered around the defense. The young scholar was right. Park had not just learned the rules of chess. He had internalized a philosophy of strategic thinking that the Zorvath could not match in 7 days, perhaps not in 7 years. Every move revealed depth of understanding built through decades of study. Dr. Chen watched from the human section, hardly daring to breathe. He had doubted Park's decision to choose chess. He had feared this moment. But now, seeing the position on the board, he began to believe. The commander had not been overconfident. He had known exactly what he was doing. Park advanced his king, supporting the pawn's march forward. Kralvex's rook tried to give checks, forcing Park's king to move, delaying the inevitable. But Park calmly stepped to safe squares each time, never allowing the checks to disrupt his plan. The pawn moved closer to promotion with each move. Then Park made a brilliant sacrifice. He gave up his rook, allowing Kralvex to capture it. The Zorvath section stirred with hope. Had Park blundered at last? Had the pressure caused a mistake? But Park's next move revealed the truth. His pawn advanced to the final rank and transformed into a queen. The new queen was perfectly positioned. Kralvex's king had no escape. The Zorvath prince could delay for a few more moves, but checkmate was mathematically certain. Kralvex studied the position for long minutes. His tactical analysts in the audience were running calculations, searching desperately for a defensive resource. But there was none. The computers confirmed what Kralvex could see with his own eyes. He was lost. The prince's hand moved to his king. For a moment, Park thought Kralvex might try to continue, to force Park to demonstrate the checkmate sequence. But the Zorvath did not believe in meaningless resistance. If defeat was certain, honor demanded acknowledgement. Kralvex tipped over his king with one clawed finger. The holographic piece fell slowly, dissolving into light particles before it hit the board. The traditional gesture of surrender. The chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others sat in shocked silence. The Gorehounds, who had bet heavily on Zorvath victory, roared their displeasure. The whisperfolk created a sound like wind chimes. Their expression of amazement. High Mediator Vextha raised her hands for silence. The match is concluded. Commander Park Ji-woo has achieved victory. By the terms of trial by strategic contest, humanity's claim to Verdun Prime is affirmed. The Zorvath must withdraw all occupation forces. Kralvex stood slowly. He was 3 meters of armored muscle, a prince of warriors who had never known defeat. Every eye in the chamber watched to see how he would react to this humiliation. The prince walked around the floating chessboard. He approached Park, who also stood. The size difference between them was dramatic. Kralvex could have broken Park in half with his bare hands. The chamber held its breath. Kralvex stopped before Park and bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind Zorvath gave only to honored opponents. Commander Park, you have taught me something today. I came to this match believing strategy was about force and aggression. You showed me it is about vision and patience. The Zorvath assumed we understood all forms of tactical thinking. We were wrong. Park returned the bow with equal respect. Prince Kralvex, you defended brilliantly. A weaker player would have resigned 20 moves earlier. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Perhaps not ashamed, Kralvex said, but certainly humbled. Tell me, Commander, if we had chosen military simulation instead of chess, would you have accepted the challenge? Park considered the question honestly. Probably not. I would have found a way to decline. In direct military confrontation, the Zorvath are superior. I chose chess because it was a contest where human thinking might prevail. You chose the battlefield carefully, Kralvex said with a hint of his earlier smile. That itself is strategic wisdom. I respect it. The prince turned to address the entire chamber. Let it be known that the Zorvath Empire acknowledges defeat in this contest. We will honor the terms and withdraw from Verdun Prime. But I wish to propose something additional. The chamber grew quiet again. Park felt a flutter of concern. What was Kralvex planning? Verdun Prime is a rich world, the prince continued. Large enough for 2 species. The resources are abundant. Rather than simply abandoning our work there, I propose joint development, humanity and Zorvath, sharing the planet as equal partners. Murmurs rippled through the audience. This was unexpected. The Zorvath never shared conquered territory. For a proud warrior prince to offer partnership after defeat was extraordinary. Park's mind raced. This could be a trap, a way for the Zorvath to maintain influence. But looking at Kralvex's face, he saw genuine sincerity. The prince had been changed by their match, just as Tevrin had suggested. Why would you offer this? Park asked. Kralvex gestured to the chessboard. Because you defeated me, but you did not humiliate me. You showed respect throughout the match. You taught rather than mocked when my cousin came to you for understanding. These are not the actions of an enemy. They are the actions of a potential ally. Park looked at Dr. Chen, who nodded slowly. An alliance with the Zorvath would be valuable. It might even change humanity's position in galactic politics. I accept your proposal, Park said. The news of the match result spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication should allow. Within hours, every species in Council space knew that a human had defeated a Zorvath prince at strategic contest. The implications rippled outward like waves from a dropped stone. Humanity, the newcomers, the species without major military strength, had proven they possessed something valuable. Strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, the ability to win without overwhelming force. Park stood once again before the massive windows overlooking Verdun Prime. But this time, Kralvex stood beside him. The Zorvath prince had insisted on beginning partnership negotiations immediately. Around them, council staff prepared the formal agreements that would govern joint development of the world below. I have been thinking about our match, Kralvex said quietly. There was a moment, after you sacrificed your knight, When I believed I had won, I was ahead in material. My attack seemed unstoppable. I felt the joy of certain victory. Unsittable. I brognant. Dram. Park nodded. But you had planned for that feeling. You wanted me to believe I was winning so I would overextend. You used my own confidence against me. Yes, Park admitted. In chess, we call it a positional sacrifice. You give up something concrete for something abstract. Material for position. Immediate strength for future opportunity. It is one of the hardest concepts to master because it requires trusting your evaluation over the obvious facts. Kralvex's scaled hand gestured toward Verdun Prime. And now, we are entering another kind of game. Are we not? Partnership between species with very different strengths and weaknesses. How do we ensure it does not become another contest? Park appreciated the question's depth. By remembering what chess teaches. That the goal is not to destroy the opponent. The goal is to achieve your objective. On Verdun Prime, our objective is successful development, prosperity, growth. We can achieve that better together than separately. You truly believe this? I do. The Zorvath have experience with infrastructure and organization. Humans bring different perspectives and approaches. Combined, we will build something neither could alone. Kralovex was silent for a moment, then smiled. You speak like a chess player, Commander. Always thinking several moves ahead. Rum. Dr. Chen approached with datapads containing the initial partnership framework. Commander, the Council legal staff has prepared the first draft. Both parties would have equal governing authority. Resource distribution would be proportional to population. Dispute resolution would go through joint committees. Park reviewed the documents quickly. These terms seem fair. Prince Kralvex? The Zorvath prince examined the same information. Acceptable. Though, I suggest adding cultural exchange programs. The Zorvath need to understand humanity better. Our ignorance nearly cost us an alliance. Agreed, Park said, making a note on his datapad. Across the station, in the main observation deck, young Teverin was surrounded by members of other species, asking questions about the match. The Zorvath scholar had become an unexpected celebrity, known as someone who understood both the game and its implications. How did Commander Park think so many moves ahead? Asked a Korthan diplomat. Teverin considered the question carefully. It is not just calculation. Though Park's ability to calculate is strong, it is pattern recognition, built through experience. When you study chess deeply, certain positions speak to you. You see them and understand immediately what should be done. Park has played tens of thousands of games. His instinct for position is like a warrior's instinct for danger. Automatic and reliable. Could a Zorvath learn to play this way? Asked another observer. Yes, Teverin said firmly. If we are willing to change how we think about strategy, we must learn to value patience over aggression, position over material, long-term advantage over immediate gain. These are not natural Zorvath instincts, but they can be learned. In fact, I believe my cousin the prince has already begun learning them. What Teverin said was true. Kralvex had requested that Park teach him more about chess, not to prepare for another match, but because the prince recognized the game's value as a training tool. If chess could teach different ways of thinking about strategy, it might make the Zorvath better commanders, better leaders, better thinkers. Over the following days, Park and Kralvex worked closely on the partnership agreement. They discovered they worked well together. The prince's direct, decisive nature complemented Park's thoughtful, analytical approach. When they disagreed, which happened often, they resolved differences through discussion rather than confrontation. One evening, Park invited Kralvex to the human quarters for an informal chess game. No stakes, no audience, just two players exploring the game together. They set up the physical board Park's grandfather had given him. This board is very old, Kralvex observed, running a careful claw over the worn wood. My grandfather brought it from Earth. Park explained. He taught me to play on this board when I was a child. Every piece has history. Every square has seen hundreds of games. They played slowly, with Park explaining his thinking process aloud. See here, Park said, pointing to a position in the middle game. You are attacking my bishop. The obvious move is to retreat it. But if I sacrifice it instead, your pawn structure becomes weak. 3 moves later, I can exploit that weakness. Reet. There. Reet. To hide. Reet. Kralvex studied the position. But you lose the bishop. A valuable piece. Now, yes. But the pawn weakness lasts the rest of the game. The exchange favors me long term. The prince made a deep rumbling sound that Park had learned was Zorvath laughter. This is madness. But I begin to see the logic. You think about the game like a living thing that changes over time. Exactly, Park said. Chess positions are dynamic. What seems strong now might become weak later. What seems weak now might become strong. You must evaluate not just the current position but how it will transform. They played late into the station's night cycle. Kralvex lost again, but by a narrower margin. I am improving, the prince said, with satisfaction. You are, Park agreed. Your tactical vision was always strong. Now you are developing positional understanding. Give yourself a few years of study, and you will be formidable. Will you play me again then? When I am properly trained? Park smiled. I would be honored. 3 months later, the first joint human-Zorvath settlement on Verdun Prime was officially established. The founding ceremony drew representatives from across the galaxy. What had begun as a disputed territorial claim had transformed into a symbol of cooperation. Park stood on Verdun Prime's surface for the first time, breathing the clean air, feeling solid ground beneath his feet. Beside him stood Kralvex, looking equally moved. Behind them, teams of humans and Zorvath worked together on construction projects, sharing knowledge and techniques. The centerpiece of the new settlement was a monument designed by both species together. It stood 10 meters tall, carved from Verdun Prime's native stone. The sculpture depicted a chess piece, a knight, representing the strategic thinking that had brought 2 species together. But it was not just any knight. It was designed to look like both a human chess knight and a Zorvath warrior's helm. A fusion of 2 cultures. Inscribed at the base in both human and Zorvath languages were the words, "Victory through understanding." High Mediator Vextha presided over the ceremony. Today marks a new chapter in galactic relations. Human and Zorvath, through contest and respect, have created partnership. May other species learn from this example. After the formal ceremony, Park's grandfather appeared on a communication screen, broadcasting from New Sol Colony. The old man's eyes were wet with emotion. Jiwoo, your parents would have been so proud. You did not just win a game, you built a bridge. I learned from the best teacher, Park replied. Everything you taught me about chess, about patience, about seeing beyond the immediate, it all mattered. Thank you, grandfather. Later that evening, Park and Kralvex stood on a hill overlooking the settlement. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors neither Earth nor the Zorvath homeworld possessed. Construction lights twinkled below as work continued into the night. How does it feel? Kralvex asked. To have won a world through a game. Park considered the question. I did not win a world. We earned a partnership. There is a difference. Always the chess player, Kralvex said with amusement. Precise with words, as you are with moves. Words matter. Moves matter. How we think about things shapes what we achieve. The prince nodded slowly. My people have much to learn from yours. And perhaps you have things to learn from us as well. Definitely, Park agreed. The Zorvath's discipline, honor, and courage are admirable. Combined with human creativity and strategic flexibility, we will achieve great things. In the months that followed, the Verdun Prime partnership exceeded all expectations. Zenithium mining operations, established by Zorvath engineers, achieved record efficiency. Human agricultural specialists developed crops that thrived in Verdun Prime's unique soil. Cultural exchange programs brought Zorvath and human children together, learning each other's languages and customs, and chess became unexpectedly popular among both species. Zorvath warriors discovered they enjoyed the mental challenge. Human strategists appreciated learning from Zorvath tactical directness. Regular tournaments brought both communities together, competition, fostering friendship rather than conflict. Park and Kralvex played regularly, their games becoming something of a diplomatic tradition. Other species began requesting similar strategic contests to resolve disputes. The Council formally recognized chess as an alternative to military confrontation for territorial disagreements. Several conflicts that might have led to war were instead settled over a chessboard. Young Tevrin became humanity's most vocal advocate among the Zorvath. He wrote extensively about what chess revealed about different approaches to strategic thinking. His work influenced a generation of Zorvath scholars to look beyond pure military might, to value diplomacy, patience, and creative problem-solving. 5 years after the match, Park stood once more at the monument to the Night Peace. Verdun Prime had grown into a thriving joint colony of nearly 1 million inhabitants, split evenly between humans and Zorvath. Children of both species played together in the streets, speaking hybrid languages that blended both cultures. Kralovex joined him, as he often did. The prince had become not just an ally, but a genuine friend. Do you ever regret it? Do you ever regret it? Kralvex asked, choosing chess instead of simply negotiating with the council? That might have been safer. Park shook his head. No regrets. The match forced both our species to see each other clearly. You learned that humans possess valuable strategic thinking. Humans learned that the Zorvath value honor and respect strength of mind as well as body. Without that dramatic demonstration, we might have remained suspicious of each other. You sacrificed certainty for possibility, Kralvex observed. Like sacrificing a piece for position. Exactly like that. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the settlement thrive. In the distance, a group of human and Zorvath children were setting up a large chessboard in the community square, preparing for one of the regular friendly matches. Park thought about his grandfather's words from so long ago. Chess is about understanding what your opponent values, what they fear, what they cannot see. By choosing chess, Park had forced everyone to see clearly, to look beyond assumptions and recognize the possibility of cooperation. The game that won a world had done more than secure territory. It had proven that strategic thinking, creativity, and respect could achieve what military might alone could not. It had shown the galaxy that humanity's strength was not in weapons or numbers but in the ability to think differently, to see possibilities where others saw only obstacles. And perhaps most importantly, it had taught both humans and Zorvath that the greatest victories come not from defeating opponents, but from transforming them into partners. As the sun set fully and stars began to emerge, Park smiled. Somewhere in the settlement, someone was teaching someone else how to play chess. The game continued, as it always would, building understanding one move at a time. Retry.